I don't want to jinx it, but this may be the most successful seasonal TBR I've ever done. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife, and today I am taking you through all of the books that I put on my winter TBR for winter of 2020, 2021, and I want to see if I've actually read any of them. I have been doing seasonal TBRs since summer of 2020, and with winter coming up, I kind of wanted to focus on kind of cheerful books, Christmassy books, festive romances, that kind of an area. I knew there were a couple on my NetGalley shelf that needed a lot of attention, but I also picked out 7 books that I wanted to specifically focus on for winter. Let's take a look at what they were and whether or not I've actually read them. First one is going to be a disappointment because I have not read The Bride Test by Helen Huang. This is still on my physical TBR, so it is still on that shelf behind me, meaning that it could still come out in an upcoming advent calendar TBR game. It could come out this month, it could come out in the next couple of months. I don't know. I will get around to it, and I know now this is the kind of book that I'm really looking for at the moment. This is a steamy romance. It has really good representation. It has Asian representation. It has autism rep. It has so much good representation, and it has a really great steamy romance. So I know that when I get around to it, this is going to be my kind of book. I just haven't picked it up yet, and I still don't know why. One that I did read though was The 2 Lives of Lydia Bird by Josie Silver. This was Josie Silver's second book, and it was the second book of Josie Silver's that I have read, but I didn't love it as much as I had loved One Day in December. So this follows Lydia, whose boyfriend Freddie loses his life in a car accident on her birthday while he's on the way to collect her for dinner. So with her sleeping tablets, she takes one every night and she can go into this alternate reality where Freddie is still alive and she and he are planning the wedding that they're having, that things are happening with her family that don't mirror what's happening in real life. There's things that happen in real life that aren't quite the same as in her sleep world. There are things that happen in her sleep world that aren't quite the same as in real life. There were a couple of things that I didn't love about this book. I didn't love the pacing. I thought that it was really, really slow, and it took a really long time for me to actually get into the book itself. When I did get into it, I found the dual timeline to be really confusing because, as I said, there's things that happen in a different timeline differently than how they're happening in the other. So there might be something similar, but it's happened completely different in this time than it has in the other one. And I just found that really difficult to get to terms with and to discover what's happening in this timeline, which one am I in right now, what's happening here, who's here, what is their story. There were other aspects of it that I found quite predictable, but there was a character introduction midway through the novel that I was actually really pleased with. So overall, this was probably a 3-star read for me. I didn't really love it as much as I thought I would. Next book is the one that I had anticipated the most. And I think I put this on 2 seasonal TBRs. I definitely put this one on the summer TBR. I don't remember if I put it on the autumn one, but I definitely also put it on the winter one because I knew I wanted to get around to it. It was a 5-star prediction, and it was Pretending by Holly Bourne. So this is about April, who can't really seem to get past the 5th date when she's going out with guys, and she dreams up this manic pixie dream girl persona called Gretel, who she puts on dating apps and she puts out there as herself and her dating persona, and then meets a guy called Josh. And so when she's with Josh and she starts falling deeper for him, she starts to realize that playing these 2 different personalities and being these 2 different people isn't really working out for her anymore, and she's going to have to kind of choose which one she's going to go forward with. So that's one aspect of this book. And another aspect of it is that there is quite a lot of content to do with sexual trauma and sexual assault and the aftermath of that. So April herself has been this victim of sexual violence. She works for a sexual violence helpline where people who have also been affected by that will call up and ask for advice or tell their story and talk to somebody without judgment or any like that. That is something that is based on Holly's life herself. She has also worked for a crisis hotline, and you can see just how much she has researched that since she finished up there. You can see just how much she knows still from her job. She knows what you can say, what you shouldn't say, how you should help these people, what's helpful, what isn't. That was done really well in this book, and that is an aspect of it that I really enjoyed reading sounds like the wrong word to say, but did also really enjoy reading that aspect of it because it was so well done. Next one on the list is an ebook. So it's All About Us by Tom Ellen. This is the second of Tom Ellen's books that I have read, and it is the first adult novel I think he has written, but at least the first adult novel of his that I've read. So you're following Ben, who is married to a woman named Daphne, and their marriage isn't going very well. They're having a lot of arguments. They're not being as communicative as they were with each other in the past. Ben and Daphne go their separate ways for an evening. Daphne is going out for a work do, and I think Ben is just there he's still at home to put up the Christmas decorations, but he goes to meet a friend of his at the pub. And while they're there, he buys a watch that he thinks he can give away for a present or so. And the next morning he wakes up and he is back in 2005, which is the year that he and Daphne met. He's back on the night that not only did he meet Daphne, but also that he was talking to another woman named Alice, who is a friend of his and who he's still in contact with. And then you have this kind of a Christmas Carol retelling, kind of a modernization of the story where Ben is trying to see what his life would be like if he didn't meet Alice, what his life would be like if he didn't meet Daphne, what his life would be like if their relationship broke down, what his life would be like if he was with another person. I thought that was really well done. It's definitely very much a grass is greener story in that Ben gets to see what other aspects of his life would be like if he had taken different paths or if he had met different people or if he lived in different places. But something that really stuck out to me is Ben's mother has passed away before the events of the book even happen, and he's given several more opportunities to spend more time with her and to talk with her a bit more and just to be around her. And I think that was my absolute favorite aspect of this book. It pops up every now and then when he's going through these different timelines, but that was my favorite aspect of this book, giving that kind of a second chance to go back, spend more time with your loved ones. I think there's not one person among us who wouldn't take that opportunity if they were given it. Next book on the list is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. And I will admit that this one took me quite a while to get into. It took maybe 3-4 chapters before I kind of got into the swing of the book. And part of that is because it's written in a non-linear format. So you start here and then you're going to 5 years before, and then you're going to 3 weeks after, and then you're going to 2 weeks beforehand. And then it's very much a non-linear story. I tried to get past it, but I did feel that it gave the story a really weird pacing, in that I don't know if it was too fast, I don't know if it was too slow, but there was definitely a little bit off about the pacing that I just didn't enjoy. This book follows two twins, Desiree and Stella, who are mixed race, and when they're 16 or so, they leave the majority back town that they are living in, and one of them stays away and the other one returns when she's in her mid-30s. So Desiree comes back to Mallard, the town where she was living, and she brings her daughter Jude with her and continues to live her life as a black identifying woman, whereas Stella stays away, lives her life as white identifying, marries a white man, and has a mixed race child. And you follow their lives throughout the whole book. You basically follow from birth to as far as. In this time, Jude and Kennedy, the two daughters, meet up with each other. At first, they don't know who each other is. They don't know the connection that they have with each other. But sooner or later, they do start finding out that these girls are cousins, and what is my mother like, what is your mother like, and they have this kind of exchange of information about each other. And that's when you see Stella's life kind of starting to unravel, and Kennedy starts finding out more about her mother and her mother's background and what her mother's life was like before she moved to Los Angeles and had her. I don't want to say that I didn't enjoy the book. I just found it really difficult to get into. And I think also that the non-linear storytelling, it just gave it a little bit of a weird pacing vibe for me that took a little bit of time to get used to. I only didn't read 2 books. And the other book that I didn't read was One New York Christmas by Mandy Baggett. But I kind of made up for it by reading A Perfect Paris Christmas by Mandy Baggett, which I also really enjoyed, in that this was a book that followed Keely, who went to Paris to visit the family of a woman who had donated a kidney to her. And that is something that I haven't seen in books ever. I have never seen kidney transplant or dialysis needs or any of that kind of a thing. I've never seen that addressed in a book before. And as somebody who has a family member who has kidney problems and who has had kidney transplants and who has been on dialysis, seeing that brought to life in a book was really interesting for me, and it really gave me a bigger understanding of the things that they had been going through in their life. Final book on the list, and final books that I did read, is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. So this follows Nina, who is very much coming to the end of her tether with her life and is just planning to end her life, basically. But when she is at that stage, she walks into this area called the Midnight Library. And if you open a new book, it will give you an insight as to what your life would be like. What is this? Oh, I found my bookmark. So Nina goes to this library and opens all of these other books, and it gives you an insight as to what your life would be like if you had chosen this career, if you lived in this area, if you were married to this person, if you weren't married at all, if you had done X, Y, and Z completely differently, and now you were a totally different person. That was something that I really enjoyed about that book. And I thought, seeing what your life would be like if you weren't able to live it without any regrets, if you were able to go back and pick out your life again, basically start from here and go back again without having made that decision but making this one, that was such an interesting thing for me to read. I think that the book itself has a kind of an underlying message and an underlying tone of live your life without regrets, and that is something that I really loved seeing in the book. There were a couple of lives that I thought, okay, this is the one that I would choose for myself, or this is the one that I would be most interested to experience. This is the one that I think is going to be the best one to read. But I think every situation that Nina had herself in was just really interesting to watch for. There was something, actually, it's probably not intentional, and it's probably not me picking up on something that he meant, but I noticed that the name of the town in which Nina lives is Bedford, and I thought that that was a kind of a roundabout mention of Bedford Falls in It's a Wonderful Life, which has a kind of similar storyline to this, where George Bailey sees like what the world would be like if he didn't exist, if he had never been born. It's kind of a similar story to that. So I don't know if that was like a nod to that. There is one trigger warning that I'm going to give for this book, because it is something that definitely triggers me in books, and that is that there is an animal death in this book. So if that is something that you don't enjoy, it happens very early on in the book and it's not really mentioned again, but it is something to look out for. Those were all of the books that I have put on my winter TBR for this year. Some I got to, much more successful than others, but still a little bit of work to be done. Don't forget to like and subscribe, because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.